Welcome to the Disney Wedding Podcast. This show is brought to you by Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, the only guidebook and bridal organizer tailored exclusively to Disney's fairy tale weddings at Walt Disney World. I'm Carrie Hayward, and each week I feature Disney wedding updates, money-saving tips, and interviews with wedding vendors and real Disney couples. I also cover honeymoons, anniversaries, and engagements at the Disney parks and resorts. Join me now as the Disney Wedding Podcast celebrates romance at Disney destinations. Today on the Disney Wedding Podcast, I am speaking with Disney bride Ariana Mah about her ceremony at Disneyland Hotel's Rose Court Garden with a reception at the Sleeping Beauty Pavilion. I thought you guys would be interested to hear how she chose these locations and how she planned everything and how it all turned out. So welcome, Ariana.
Hi, thanks so much for having me here today.
Thanks for being on the show today. I always like to start at the very beginning and find out how you guys decided that you wanted to have your wedding at Disneyland.
We weren't people who knew right away we wanted to get married at Disneyland. We used to live in Southern California, so we knew we wanted to have our wedding there just for sentimental reasons, and it was just a good midpoint between where our two families are located. So we were just looking at a lot of venues in the area and almost reached out to Disneyland as kind of as a whim. We're like, hey, let's just see. But we didn't really think it'd be an option for us, to be honest. But once we got more information and, compared to other venues, and we realized we could have our wedding there at a very similar cost because everywhere in California is pretty expensive, we thought it would just be a really special place to have it where, is somewhere meaningful for us. Location was pretty central for a lot of people. And we liked the idea of being able to revisit our venues too, versus just going to, a place that just functions as a wedding venue that you'd never go back to in the future. And we thought it'd be a nice way to have a non-cookie cutter wedding too. We can have it a little bit more unique.
That's a great idea. How did your friends and family react when they found out where your wedding was going to be?
Oh, they were very excited. They were asking us where we were looking, and obviously they didn't want to pressure us, but they all very much expressed how excited they would be if we did choose to have Disneyland as our venue. So they were all really excited.
That's wonderful. How many guests did you invite and how many were able to make the trip?
We invited about 100, but day of we only had about 75 people.
And how did you choose the day of the week and time of day for your event?
We wanted it to be on a weekend or close to a weekend. We ended up choosing a Friday. For one, it was a little cheaper having it on a weekday. And we liked the idea of having the rest of the weekend to do post-wedding things with everybody. In terms of the time of day, we just liked the idea of having a dinner reception. We thought it just was a little bit more formal. And that way it opened up the rest of the day too, to do all the getting ready things.
I see. Okay. So then how did you choose your ceremony and reception venues?
First, it was based off of our expected guest count. I mean, luckily we didn't have a ton of people that we were inviting, so we did almost have our pick of venues. We liked the Rose Court Garden just because it was really pretty, seemed a little bit more secluded from the rest of the hotel, seemed a little bit more private. And for Sleeping Beauty Pavilion, we loved that it wasn't your standard rectangular reception hall, had a little bit more of a unique shape. And they had just redone the carpeting, so it looked really, really nice. We loved the chandelier. And we liked that it was already pretty on its own, so we didn't really have to add that much more to it in terms of decor or anything. And same with the Rose Court Garden as well.
Got it. Okay. Now, how did you choose your officiant?
Honestly, we just went with one of the ones that Disney recommended. We did interview a couple that were on their preferred vendor list and just chose the one that we vibed with better. Yeah, she was really nice, really warm and friendly, had a lot of good advice for us. It was just easy to talk to and made us feel comfortable.
That's great. Who did you choose?
Carolyn Alexander.
Got it. Did you guys add any kind of entertainment to the ceremony or to the reception?
We had a DJ who we also hired through Disney. Her name was Wendy, and she was really great. And she also does a lot of events within the parks too, which was really cool.
That's great. Now, do you have any menu items or cake flavors that you could recommend?
Yes, for cake, we went with churro and the vanilla with berries. We liked that the churro flavor was a little bit more unique, and vanilla was just classic, so we couldn't go wrong with that. In terms of the menu, I mean, all the food was phenomenal. We actually were able to try both the buffet menu and the plated menu. We hosted our rehearsal dinner through Disney as well and had the buffet there. And then for our actual reception, had the plated menu. And honestly, we actually liked the buffet food better. But I think with our larger guest count, we're still glad that we went with the plated dinner, but definitely think for a smaller group, I would most definitely recommend the buffet.
Interesting. And so then where did you have your rehearsal dinner through Disney?
Also on property, just in one of their smaller rooms, I think it was the adventure room. We had maybe 20 to 25 people there. So they set up a table in one of their rooms. And as part of the rehearsal dinner, as you know, a little thank you for our wedding party and our parents who were helping us out a lot with the wedding, we decided to treat them to a private viewing area for World of Color, which was really cool. So we had our dinner and we kept it as a surprise for them. And then our planner came in and she escorted us into California Adventure for World of Color. And we had our own area. So we were able to spread out and just enjoy. And it was really, really fun. And everyone was really, really surprised.
That's awesome. How does Disney do that? Do they just charge you a per person viewing fee or something?
Yes. So there was a per person charge as well as an escort fee. And then I don't believe there was a minimum or maximum number of people. We just had to submit the request a few months ahead of time and get that approved. And we were able to have our photographers join us as well. And we also had to pay a per person fee for them as if they were part of our wedding party.
Got it. Okay, great. And do you have any specific menu items from either event that you would recommend?
The mushroom risotto for sure from the buffet menu. Also, the short rib was really, really great. For the plated menu, we loved their mushroom soup. We just like mushrooms a lot, if you can't tell. And the dessert, we really liked the creme brulee, even though it wasn't the standard one where they brulee the sugar on top. It was more just the custard. It was really, really good. It was really light, especially after a lot of food.
Interesting. Okay. Now, did you guys add any portrait sessions inside the parks?
Yes, we did our portrait session 2 days after the wedding at the Sleeping Beauty Castle.
That's great. How did you choose that location?
We just thought, if we're going to do pictures in the park, we have to do the castle. It was the most expensive, but at the same time, we thought if we were going to do it, we had to pick the most iconic place. And with the castle, they do let you go behind the castle as well into Fantasyland and a little bit more towards Main Street where the partner statue is. So we did get a really good variety of location and different backdrops and things like that.
Oh, that's great to hear. Can you give my listeners a timeline of how the wedding day ran?
Sure. So hair and makeup started pretty early, around 7:30 in the morning. I had 8 other people getting ready with me, including my bridesmaids and my mom and another friend who was just helping out that day. So it was a pretty early time, but we just hung out, got the nerves out, which was fun just to have some girl time. And then I think it was around maybe 2 or 3 o'clock is when the photographers and videographers showed up, and that's when we started doing the getting ready photos, things like that. And then we had a first look, so we were able to do a lot of the wedding party photos before the ceremony, which is actually really helpful. And then our ceremony started at 5 o'clock. And then after that, we had our cocktail hour, and then reception started at 6:30. And we did decide to extend our reception by an hour. So instead of ending at 10:30, we were able to end at 11:30, which I thought was really nice to have that extra hour just to spend more time with all of our guests and not feel like we were just being rushed out of the room or anything like that. But it did make for a long day.
So, what ended up being your favorite memory of your wedding day?
There wasn't really one specific moment. I think it was just looking around, seeing how happy everyone was, how much fun everyone was having, and just being in that energy. It was really fun and yeah, just smiling the whole time.
When you guys were planning, what were some of the most important aspects of the event where you focused your attention or your budget?
So food was a big one for us. We are huge foodies. And reflecting on previous weddings we had been to, there were some where we felt like the food wasn't great or, just kind of, run of the mill food, nothing memorable. And we really wanted our food to stand out. We wanted our guests to really enjoy the whole experience. So food was definitely a big priority for us. So we did pay a little extra for certain food options. Another one was just the guest experience as a whole, is making sure guests were having fun. They enjoyed the food, they enjoyed the drinks, constant entertainment. And also photography was a big one for us. We really wanted to make sure we had photos to help us remember and help us look back on the day.
That's great. Were there any aspects that were less important where you saved some money or just your effort?
Yeah, floral was one of them. I definitely still wanted to have some floral and decor, but everything I chose, I made sure we could repurpose from the ceremony to the reception. And one thing that was really great about having Disney do the floral was that they were able to move it for me. So as soon as the ceremony was done, they just packed it all up, set it up in the reception hall, and that was really, really nice. One other thing where we saved some money was by not having an entrance vehicle. One of the most popular ones to have is the Cinderella carriage, which is beautiful and gorgeous. But for me personally, think about where I wanted to allocate my funds. I decided just to have the more traditional, just, walking down the aisle versus having a specific entrance vehicle. So I could use that money more towards, photography and having that park shoot, which was a really big priority for us. And the other one I would say was having live music. At first, I really wanted to have like a string quartet or a harpist or something for the ceremony. But in the end, decided just to have our DJ play for the ceremony and the reception to save costs.
Okay, got it. Now, did anything go wrong or just not turn out like you expected?
A couple minor things. There was a little, I don't even want to say mix up with the boutonnieres, but I mean, it's partially my fault for not relaying to everyone else who should be getting which boutonnieres. So essentially, the one I got for my dad ended up not getting to him because I got him a special one. But it all worked out in the end, and the only person who knew it was wrong was me. And then I had also printed out photos of our relationship over the past few years, and I forgot to bring those too. So again, not the end of the world, but yeah, I wish I had those there.
Ah. Now, was there anything that seemed like a big deal beforehand or you were worried about, and then it turned out not to be a big deal?
Yeah, I was really worried about who would be moving all of my personal items around. I'm a big planner, so I like to be in control all the time. So I was really focused on when I would be able to do a lot of those things. And then the day of, I just ended up just entrusting it with everyone else, and it worked out perfectly. And in the end, I was like, it's okay if it's not perfect, as long as, everyone's here. So, yeah.
That's a great way to look at it. Is there anything you would have done differently knowing what you know now?
Nothing in particular. I think a lot of it was just learning as I went through the process. And I think I did a lot of research going into it as well. So definitely making use of Pinterest, talking to past Disney brides, which is really helpful as well. And I think just prioritizing what mattered to us and trying to not let other people's opinions take too much control.
That's great advice. Do you have any other tips or advice for future Disney couples?
just remembering that the day is about you. And one other thing that I really appreciated was anytime I had questions or reached out to previous Disney brides or couples, everyone was just so happy to help. And I think just having that community was really, really nice to have. And I think all of us who've had our weddings there are more than happy to help and answer questions, especially for Disneyland. For some reason, I feel like there isn't as much available information out there compared to what I've seen for weddings at Disney World. So definitely just using those resources and asking questions, and we're always all happy to help.
That's great advice. Well, Ariana, I think you've offered a lot of great tips and advice for anyone who's interested in getting married or having a vow renewal at Disneyland, and I appreciate your taking the time.
Of course, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much again for having me.
That's our show for today. I'm your host, Carrie Hayward, inviting you to join me again next week for another episode of the Disney Wedding Podcast. Past shows and tons of photos for each episode are available on my website, DisneyWeddingPodcast.com, or listen in your favorite podcast app. And for instant answers to all your Walt Disney World wedding questions, check out Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, available as an interactive ebook with continual free updates at fairytaleweddingsguide.com.